I'm Erica Anderson. I am from Southern California. Just got back here about 4 years ago. Was on the East Coast for a long time working. But I'm here to talk to you about student loan repayment, as well as affordable payment options and potentially forgiveness. I know that's what a lot of clients actually come to me for. They're like, get rid of these loans. And I was like, listen, I'm not a genie. I can't get rid of them, but I can help you navigate if you qualify for loan forgiveness or just trying to get the best plan for you when it comes to paying off your loans as quickly as possible or getting a more affordable repayment. So give me just a second as I get this slide up and ready. I had it up and then I moved location, so I apologize.
Everybody in the chat, are you guys able to hear? Because I got somebody that said they couldn't hear anything. Can you guys hear by any chance? Just making sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear. Okay, it's just loading. Give it just a moment. But while it's loading, I am a student, it's a student loan consulting expert on repayment and forgiveness. I did undergraduate in California, and then I went and got my master's at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in Tallahassee, Florida. Did that in journalism, and then I also got a second master's in sports administration. And so um, there's a story behind several degrees, right? But but also having to do with student loans. But that was my journey. I was a journalist for about 12 years, and then I got out of journalism, story behind that as well, and went into higher education communications. And then I made the transition, worked for law school, worked for San Diego State, and then made the transition to work for a utility company right now as my full-time job. And then this job I do is pretty much another full-time job because I work until 9 o'clock at night and I just want to help people. And so that's how I got into it. A little bit about my journey, as well as um, someone helped me with my loans, and that was the catalyst to me doing this. And I just didn't know much about loans. I knew I had them. I knew I had a lot. Thought I was going to die with them. Wasn't going to pay them off. Nobody taught me how to afford repayment. Nobody taught me about forgiveness. And so all I knew was if you couldn't afford it, go into forbearance and then go get another degree. Hence why I have two master's degrees. Almost went and got a PhD. And then I was trained um, on becoming a student loan consultant and started my business. And so that is how I kind of got here and into space. And it's just my passion to help people not be afraid of them. They are slightly scary, but it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. You're going to make it through. So, and then just a little bit of a couple of wins that I've had recently. We've helped a double surgeon doctor get rid of almost $1 million in loans.
Wow.
And I also had a teacher. She's on the track for forgiveness, and we got her payment from $800 to $200. And then I have another teacher. Literally, she's in the 90-day process of being forgiven over $120,000.
Whoa.
So it's a real impact that can change a family's trajectory, and it can change the trajectory of your life. So I just love to be a part of it, and I love education, and so it kind of bridges my two worlds together of background in journalism because changes are happening. So I'm having to research and put it in digestible content for people. And then teaching, right? So I did a little teaching as well. So that's just a little bit about my background. And kind of what we'll talk today is, a lot of times you don't know what loans you have. So just identifying what loan types are, identifying repayment plans, looking at forgiveness plans, and then going over some costly mistakes. And then I also want to have like a little interactive session towards the end where I'll take a volunteer if you're so inclined, and we can look at what a repayment may look like for you, right? So you can get the number because a lot of people don't know what a repayment looks like based on their loans, and then where you can manage it. So really quickly, I'll start by, you may know this already, but if you don't, there's several types of loans. The ones I'm talking about today are direct subsidized and unsubsidized, which are your traditional loans, your Grad Plus loans for those who are in graduate school, and then Parent Plus loans are if your parents are helping you, this is the loan they take out. It is in their name. They're responsible to repay it, but sometimes parents go that route to fill the gap. Direct subsidized means the government pays your interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized means your interest accrues the minute that loan hits your financial aid and bank account and you press accept. So it accrues interest every day, every month, every year. So if you do have a little extra money, not that you do in college, but if you do, if you want to pay some interest while you're in college, that's always a good little tidbit to have, just to help with your overall balance. And then Grad Plus loans are for graduate school and professional students. It does require a credit check. I had Grad Plus loans, but you have higher borrowing limits. So where subsidized and unsubsidized, there's the cap on that. The graduate loans come into a play, right, and subsidize the rest of your education. We'll talk about the changes, but Grad Plus loans are going away come July 1st, 2026. If you're in school now, there is some grace period for you, but after 3 years, they're going to be going away. So that option is a private loan or alternative forms of funding such as scholarships, research assistantships, things like that. And so understanding interest and capitalization, I know this is not the most exciting topic, but just the basic rundown of it is that, like I said, your interest does accrue. If you have subsidized loans, the government's paying for that. You don't have to pay that interest back. On unsubsidized loans, it starts the day it hits your account and you accept that loan. So, for example, you have a $220,000 loan. It has a 5% interest rate that accrues. That's about $2.74 per day. So it's calculating every day. It's adding on an extra $2.74. And then at the end of the month, it's around 80. Now that 5% that you're paying is now going to be based on 20,000. Oh, I put two, I meant to be 20,000, but $20,080. So now the interest is a little bit higher. So it's going to go possibly to $2.80. That accrues every day. And then at the end of the month, it's 90. So it keeps adding on. So that's why when people talk about the student loan crisis and things of that nature, with our $1.7 trillion student loan portfolio, the interest accrues. So sometimes, a lot of times, your repayment, it could be $600 a month. 400 of that is going towards paying your interest. 200 is going towards the principal. So that's why it takes even longer to get done with your student loans. And it looks like you paid 20, but it's only showing that you paid 10. You're like, what's going on? A lot of that is interest and the way student loan interest is structured. But you may not know where you find out what student loans you have, what loan types you have, anything like that. Where it is the same place you filled out your FAFSA form. So on studentaid.gov, if you're ever wondering, I took out a loan a couple years ago, or you forget that's where you're going to find it. So you're going to sign in with the same email and password that you did your FAFSA form, and you're just going to go into the loan repayment side. This is where you can find all your federal loans, only federal loans, not private loans. You can find out who your servicer is, the person you need to pay. And this is where you will find what loan types you have, anything if you applied for forgiveness. Um, you'll find that tracker in there too to see how far you are. And then if you're applying for any type of repayment plan assistance or forgiveness or doing anything with your loans, you fill out those applications there. They communicate with your servicer. So your servicer is the only place that you pay your loans and they have your exact amount. And student loan is kind of just the hub for every loan that you've taken out. Now we're going to talk about repayment, right? So typically, everybody thinks you get student loans and then they go, okay, this is how much you're going to pay, and there's no wiggle room. That's all you got. pay it off until it's done. This is true and false, right? So, true for those who are in the standard plan. And this plan is typically for people who have maybe a lower loan balance or they just like consistency. They're just like, I need the same payment so I can predict what I can do with my future. It tells you how long you have to pay it off. The standard is 10 years. When your loan balance gets higher, we're talking 60,000, six figures, it spreads out the years. So, because if you had 100,000 and in 10 years, that payment's going to be astronomical, right? So they do give you some leeway where instead of it being 10, it can be it'll be 20 or 25 years. But it's a set amount every month you pay. The benefit to this is that it's predictable. And if you do the 10-year plan, it's paid off in 10 years, and then you can move about your business. And then the interest doesn't accrue as much. But we all know the job market is tough, and we all know life changes. So where you are when you graduate may not be where you are in 5 years. You may have kids, you may get married, you may have parents that you need to support, cousins, brothers, sisters. So the flexibility in plan is for income driven repayment plans. So while it says basically income, it is also based on your family size. So, income driven repayment plans are great programs for those who are entry level positions. You may have a lower salary when you're coming out of school, or you may not even get a job, right? And your grace period of 6 months ends. And you're like, okay, I don't have a job yet. This is a great plan option for you to get a low payment, $0 and soon to be $10 a month minimum. It's also great for a lot of my clients now who may have gotten laid off. You need something adjustable because you don't have any income coming in. You can secure a lower payment for a year while you're transitioning. And then these plans are also the plans that are eligible for student loan forgiveness. So if you're pursuing public service, or there's another type of forgiveness called income driven repayment forgiveness, you pay for 20 or 25 years, anything left over is forgiven. So if you've heard in the news, some people talking about, oh, I got my forgiveness, I've got my forgiveness, I've been paying for so long. That's because they've been paying for 20 or 25 years, and under your master promissory note, that's where it's actually promised to you when you signed it. Um, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So as I said, there are income driven repayment plans. Currently, there are three different ones: income based repayment, payee, then there's another one called income contingent. That is for my parent plus loan folks. So if your parents take out a loan and they're looking for an income driven repayment plan, the income contingent is their plan. But for everyone else, it's income based or payee. And payee is 10% of your discretionary income. And then income based is 15%. Typically, income based is for those people who went to school before 2014. In payee is for those who post 2014. So you guys, that plan is soon going to be phasing out in a couple of years, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. And as I said, the income driven repayment plans, if you did only an undergraduate loan, your loan, you have forgiveness after 20 years of paying. So if you had a $200,000 balance, you've been paying for 20 years, and there's a $100,000 balance at the end at 20 years, that portion is forgiven. It is taxable now, but I would rather pay the taxes on that. I can work with the IRS on a payment plan than have to pay that 100,000 that may balloon to 150 by the time I get it done, right? And that just helps with home buying, career choices, things like that, just not to have that chunk of debt on your account. If you are in graduate school or you consolidate your loan, your forgiveness is 25 years. So you're eligible for forgiveness after 25 years of being in repayment on that loan. And I'm just looking at the chat that said, at what point do you need to pick your repayment plan? You need to pick your repayment plan. Usually I tell people during your grace period. So after you graduate, you have 6 months before you have to make a payment. If you get a job and you want to start paying right away, you can submit an income driven or you can submit a plan or call your servicer, but you have to start paying or pick a plan or they'll pick it for you. Which has happened for a lot of people. They may just put you in the standard plan. Um, so that is where that comes in and when you have to pick it. So when we talk about payment plan comparison, both plans are up to you. It depends on what your goals are and where you are in your career and what's going on in your life. For some people, my old friend, she's been on the standard plan. She loves it. It's fixed. She's almost done paying. She said 10 years. I know what I can do. I'll buy a house after that. For some other folks who may have had children, they were like, I can't afford that right now. So they're in the income. So just know the income driven one offers you high flexibility. You will pay more over time because interest does accrue. And then your monthly payment is likely lower than the standard plan. Standard plan, your monthly payment is higher. You will pay less over time, but there's not any flexibility. I see your hand up, Julio.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Um,
you're good.
so for those, that are in public service, we were under the impression that it was 10 years. So has that gone up? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'll get to that in a minute.
Oh,
It is
okay.
still
Sorry.
10
Okay.
years
Okay.
for public
Okay.
service. Yes, this is
Okay.
only for the income driven.
Ah,
So
okay.
if
Okay.
those who aren't in public service, there is an option for you to be forgiven, but this is for only those who don't qualify for public service.
Okay, awesome. That clarifies a couple things. We do have a couple questions coming in, so if we can maybe touch on those real quick. So
Mhm.
Jose is asking, is the grace period is for graduate students too? Does that exist as well?
It exists, but just know that your undergraduate loans and your graduate loans have different grace periods.
Mm, okay.
So that's what I didn't know. So if I used up my grace period for undergraduate in between your graduate degree and your undergraduate degree, then you would be automatic repayment for your undergraduate, and then your new ones would be 6 months.
Mhm. Awesome. Okay.
But both of those hit at the same time. That's another mistake I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'm good. I have my 6 month grace. And they're like, no, undergrads and graduates hit at the same time. Um, so
Awesome.
after completing graduate school, you have to wait 25 years of payments for PSLF. No, I'll answer that in a minute. It's only 10 years for PSLF. The 20 and 25-year forgiveness is if you do not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Um, and what is loan consolidation and when it can apply? So, loan consolidation, newer borrowers post 2014 don't really have to worry about that unless you are a person who does not like having to track all your loans, and you just want one big loan, right? Some people like that flexibility. They just like that standard. Other people, typically, if you have the same servicer, it's not that you're going to have to pay 50 here, 50 there. They're going to have a big chunk for you to pay, and then they just apply it to each loan how they see fit. So consolidation really is only for people that have older loans that need to get into this loans that qualify for income driven or public service, or if you just want all your loans into one loan so you don't have to look through it. But there's really not a benefit to consolidation. But I can talk about public service in a minute. So, as I said, which plan is right for you? That really is up to you. What your starting salary is when you get a job, if you're looking at trying to pursue public service, or if you need flexibility now or later. So you're just going to have to evaluate your circumstances and then decide which one is best for you. Or you can pay the expert like myself and we could go over it and give you tips and recommendations. But that's the other thing. So here's the fun part. Changes coming in July of 2026. A lot of people are upset about this. I am indifferent to both of them. I'm just here to help. A lot of changes, the ultimate goal on some of these changes is to not allow people to have seven-figure debt. Because we are in a it's the portfolio is 1.7 trillion and people just can't get out from under it. So the push is going to be so that you do not you can't borrow more than 257,500 lifetime. So that's the most you're soon going to be able to borrow. That's the cap. Everything else, you have to find alternative sources. So the other big thing you may have heard about in the news come July 1st is the one big beautiful bill and its impact on student loans, right? So if this is where I talked about the 3-year period, grace period for you all that are in school, you have a transition period. So if you are a junior, right, and you're thinking about going to a 2-year graduate program right after you graduate, the limits you have now don't change. Borrowing doesn't change for you. You have 3 years before you get capped on how much you can take out. They're giving everybody a 3-year grace period so you can finish your program, and you'll still have access to Grad Plus loans. So if you're in the middle of a program, as long as you have already borrowed, you'll have access to Graduate Plus loans for 3 years. After that, you're going to get capped. So as it shows here, graduate degrees are going to be capped at 20,500 a year. And lifetime in graduate school is 100,000. And the Grad Plus loans after 3 years are going to go away. They are no longer going to be available to new borrowers. Now you see this section that says professional degrees. You're going to have a loan cap of $50,000 a year. And your total lifetime is 200,000. And when it comes to, you may have been in the news about nurses saying they weren't professional degrees, everybody in an uproar. This is where that comes in. It had nothing to do whether these professions were professional or not, right? The actual truth behind it was they looked at what degrees have higher rates of return on investment. So they narrowed the list and came up with a very strict list. There's about 11 degrees. It's on the Department of Education website, but they're typically medical school, law school, clinical psychology, pharmacy school. They have the higher professional limits because they're under the professional program. If you are a teacher and you want to get a PhD, you are under the regular graduate. You are a non-professional limit. If you're in nursing and you want to get a master's degree or a doctorate degree of nursing, you are under the non-professional lifetime limit cap. So yes, somebody said I start graduate May. Do I qualify for Grad Plus? As long as you've already taken out a loan before July 1st and it's been dispersed, you can take out a graduate. You have access to Graduate Plus for 3 more years. MBAs are graduate. They are not professional. And then for those who may have Parent Plus, or if you have, your parents do have a Parent Plus loan, this is a lot of parents, they take out a loan to help their child. They are now capping your parents' ability to borrow for you. So your parents can only do 20,000 per child per year, and they can only borrow for you up to $65,000 lifetime. Yes, JDs are professional. When it says the benefit of the Grad Plus loans against direct unsubsidized Grad Plus, you can borrow up to the cost of attendance. They have like a higher amount that you can borrow. So they have higher borrowing limits. So that's just kind of the change, some of the changes when it comes to borrowing. Y'all here are kind of in a good position. You're already in school. If you've already taken out a loan, you have 3 years to access everything that you currently have. It's after those 3 years, so 2029, if you haven't finished your program, that's when you have to kind of worry about those borrowing limits. And this is where you just got to get more creative. We're going to have to, number one, community professionals. This is where I like to come in of just like, in 3 years, my loans will be forgiven. Okay, that frees up some income for me. Maybe I can sponsor a scholarship. And just a lot of more community collective to start sponsoring scholarships, or looking into that research assistantship, looking into that teacher's assistantship, looking into that graduate assistantship, where they pay your tuition and give you a stipend. So those are some of the alternative ways that you can start looking at funding. The new plan, it's called the new repayment assistance plan. This is eventually going to take over what is the income driven plans. So eventually, all income driven plans are going to be under wrap. All new loans taken out after 2020, July 2026 will be under wrap, the RAP. The only way you can access the IBR plans that I talked about before are if you do not borrow any more money after July 1st. Once you borrow a loan after July 1st, your income driven repayment plan will be wrap. Now, there's nothing wrong with wrap. It's 10, they do like a climbing scale for percentage on payment. So your minimum payment, if you don't have a job or anything, is going to be $10 instead of the zero. But then they just increase your payment percentage based on your adjusted gross income. They increase it by 1% every $10,000. So so if you had like 20,000 for your adjusted gross, yours would be 2%. The one good thing about this is it caps all percentage at 10%. So once you get into the six-figure mark, we're in California, we have higher salaries, right? So once you get into make $100,000 or more, the most they can make you pay on RAP is 10% of that adjusted gross income. The one drawback to this plan is if you are not pursuing public service. You know that 20, 25-year mark I told you about? It's now 30 years. So it's a mortgage. So if you don't pursue public service, if you're hoping for any other type of forgiveness through the income driven, you have to pay for 30 years and anything left over would be forgiven instead of after 20. So that's an extra 5 or 10 years. They are still working out the details too of a tiered standard plan. So if you wanted a fixed rate, like that fixed payment amount, based on your total loan balance, they are looking at how to do a tiered system. So 25 years, you have the same payment, you pay off your total amount of your debt versus 10. So soon to be, the goal is to only have one income driven repayment plan and a standard plan. Because I know now a lot of people are like, I don't know what plan to pick. So this does help because they're only going to have two. So it's like one or two. What are your goals? What do you need? And then, as I mentioned, the Parent Plus changes, that there are new borrowing limits. Parent Plus loans will no longer qualify for forgiveness. Currently, your parents could consolidate their Parent Plus loan as long as they don't borrow any more money, and they can get grandfathered into the income driven repayment program. And if they work in public service, they could have that forgiven. Or they can be under the forgiveness for 20 or 25 years. Starting July 1st, if a Parent Plus loan has not been consolidated, and if it's been taken out after July 1st, the only repayment plan that is available is the standard plan. So no flexibility. The payment is the payment. That is the change that is coming, that is hitting a lot of Parent Plus borrowers right now that I've worked with, because they're working with kids. You guys are in school, you're not kids, adults, but you guys are in school. So they're like, oh, I thought I would have this amount of time to pay. So, I thought I would have access to forgiveness, but they didn't. So that's the other thing. Oh, it stopped the broadcasting. Give me 1 second. Let me look at the Zoom and see what happened. Let's see, it's back up. There we go. And that just the bottom is the legacy provision. So they have 3 years until the student graduates. Now they still have So if your parents decide they don't want to consolidate, right? Or you have Parent Plus and you don't want to consolidate, they can borrow for the next 3 years. They have no borrowing cap because you've already taken out one parent. If they've already taken out a Parent Plus loan for you, they can borrow up to the cost of attendance for the next 3 years. So it won't change. They're helping you in the next 3 years. It's for after that. I'll answer that one about July 1st in a minute. And then here is the one about public service. So this is what we talk about. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's where we talk about public service. This is everybody's favorite topic. Um, because it's like, oh, loan forgiveness, this is great. So everybody loves this topic. So public service, and it started actually under the Bush administration in 2007. And so it allowed you to, if you encourage people to work in federal government and government agencies, because private agencies typically pay more. So it was like, oh, how can we get our government agencies to attract top talent? So that's how the program started. It is a program where if you work for a public service entity, and we'll go over some of what that can include because it's actually a lot more. There are a lot more jobs in public service than you realize. It's not just working for the government or working for a school. As long as you make 120 qualifying payments, which equates to about 10 years, anything after that 10 years is forgiven tax-free. So you don't have to pay taxes on that. You just have to work for a qualifying employer. So if you work at a public hospital or you work for the public defender's office, that is a qualifying employer. The janitor that works at the public defender's office, as long as they're paid directly by that county, also qualifies for loan forgiveness just like the lawyer does or just like the prosecutor does. It's the employer, not the job. So that is public service. You do 120 qualifying payments. You get full forgiveness tax-free after 10 years working for a qualified employer, and you just have to work 30 hours or more. One of the common questions I get from people about public service is, what if I switch employers? What if I only do part-time? The answer is, if you're only can secure part-time for 2 public service agencies at 15 hours a week, as long as that time overlaps, that would count as a qualifying months. So if, nonprofits sometimes don't make a lot of money. So if you only get 20 hours here and you get 10 hours at another public service agency, you can combine those two as long as the time overlaps to make up so you can qualify for public service. Other things, government agencies, tribal. I work for a special district, so that counts. Any 501c3. So you're going to want to look and see if they're 501c3 status. Public education and public health care. So a lot of times nurses, some can qualify, doctors, some can qualify if it's at a public or a 50, a nonprofit hospital. But you have to make sure you're not hired through like an agency to be hired on. There is a little caveat on that. If, like, I know Texas and California, there's where they have to go through agencies to hire talent. So there's a little wiggle room on that. But yes, USC counts as a public service employer. um, and then, so I just wanted to give you a real life example. So Sarah graduated from USC, right? She chose to go into nonprofit. She had 85,000 in student loans. So she enrolled in the IDR plan. Her payment is around $250 a month, and she's on track for full forgiveness. I will run the numbers for Sarah really quickly. I can tell you what a payment would look like if she was not in that program. So on student aid, there is something called a student loan simulator. And so it kind of gives you an idea. It's an estimate, obviously, but not exact because you have to submit your tax information or your W-2s or your pay stubs. But I'm just going to input Sarah. Let's say Sarah's making, I'll even do this. Let's say Sarah's making $90,000 a year. She's married. She has no children yet, and she's not helping to support any other family members. And she has that 80,000, 85,000 in student loans, right? So let's do this direct subsidized $5,000. So if Sarah was not working in public service and she just wanted to pay off her loans as quickly as possible, she would be looking at a payment under the standard plan of $960 a month. That pays off her debt in 10 years by March of 2036. Now, because she works in public service and does the income based, her payment is $250. And in the same 10-year amount, she's paying a lower amount and having the rest forgiven. So for Sarah, it makes sense because she's plans on staying in public service. Why pay the full amount balance when you can pay part of the amount balance, right? So while the interest accrues and there's a larger amount as far as like the total paid, you're not going to have that whatever's left over after 10 years will be forgiven. So why not pay the lower amount for 10 years instead of paying the higher amount for 10 years and you're paying off the total, and in that same 10 years you can save $600 and have your loans forgiven at the end of it. So that would be a smart choice for her. And so this is where career planning comes into play. Hence why I got out of journalism, because number one, the hours were hectic and I just wanted to come home. But number two, number two was I got a job at my alma mater. Then I found out that I didn't even know it was public service at the time. And then I was like, oh, I like working higher ed. So I went to go work for a law school in the communications department. And then I started, was like, oh, and then I found out that's a public service. And I said, oh, well, I wasn't going to figure out how. I was like, there's no way I'm just going to die with these loans. And once I learned about it, I was like, okay, well, my next job needs to be in public service. So that was an intentional plan on mine. And so now I only have 3 years left to pay and I'll have the rest of my six-figure loans forgiven, tax-free. The other thing to this, and this is more nuanced, for those who aren't going into public service, one, there is a way for you to qualify for public service, but if it's only on your heart, if you have a desire to ever start a nonprofit, and this is typically great for my therapists or my doctors at for-profit hospitals, if you guys get a group of people together to start your own nonprofit and help the community, once you file your 501c3 paperwork, you can become eligible for public service as well. So if it's on your heart to start a nonprofit or that's been a goal of yours, once you start it and it gets qualified through the IRS, you can pay yourself as an employee of that nonprofit and qualify for public service. So there is another option if you're going into professional and you have the desire to start a nonprofit and help your community. So you're giving back, but you're also getting a benefit for giving back, right? And then, excuse me, and know that you can switch. You say you work at USC and then you decide you want to move to Nebraska and you go work for the University of Nebraska. Both are public service agencies. So you can still accrue your credit as long as it's a qualifying employer. It does not have to be for the same exact one all the time. That's also good for nurses. So I had one nurse who was at a public hospital and then she got a job as a traveling nurse. And we went through her account And we found out that she only had 4 months left until she reached public service. Oh, you better believe she quit the travel job and went back and worked for 4 months and worked out. Luckily, her employer was the agency was very nice. They were like, come back when you're ready. And she went, did her 4 months, and then came back. So even if you take a break or lose your job and you pursue, you can still accrue credit once you get back into that public service job. And then it said, how do you prove every year as a teacher to qualify? You just have to go into the public service tool. There's a form, an application. It's pretty simple. You put in the EIN number, you put in the start and stop date of your employment, and then you put in that you an email of somebody in HR that can sign off that you work there. And you have to do that every year. This is where one of the common mistakes is. I've had a lot of public service people say, I applied back in 2020 and I nothing's happened. Well, they didn't tell. The fine print says you have to apply every year because they don't know that you stayed. So you just have to fill out that form every year so it can update your count. And like I said, enroll in you're in for PS, public service, we call it PSLF. Enroll in the IDR, submit your form every year, confirm your employment is eligible, and then track your payments. A fun thing that is up on your student aid, once you submit your PSLF and get approved, there's a green bar on the top of your student aid. It's a bar graph. It'll show 120 over here, and it'll have your little green bar graph, and every year it'll go up 12. So you'll see it move. And then once you get to the 120, it gives you a little ribbon that says you have qualified for your 120. It does take about 90 days to process. Currently, if say you've gone back to school, right, and you're getting a degree, but you worked for your undergraduate loans, you worked in public service. They're still giving back credit at this point. I don't know how July 1st may come around. They may realize that the faucet is still open, but they're still giving back credit. So if you have not certified your employment, submitted your PSLF form in a couple years or ever filled out your PSLF form and you had loans from 10 years ago while you were working for a public service agency, you can still apply to have them give you your years of credit. So that's what happened with me. I had worked at public service agencies and didn't know. And then once I found out, they applied my credit. I think last year they applied like 6.5 years of credit. So I was thinking, oh, I'm going to work for this district for 10 years. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh, so I have to work for 4.5 years. Okay, great. So one of the things that don't be me, don't ignore your loans and your grace period. This is your chance to take advantage of that and like just come up with a plan. You can sit down with an expert or you could just save these slides, right? Rewatch the recording and make a plan for what you want to do with your student loans, right? And then use this time to figure out what the best repayment plan is for you because a lot of people made mistakes. One of the big costly mistakes has been a lot of people have been in the standard plan for years. If they had been in the IDR plan, their loans would have been forgiven. So I've had people who were paying for 20 years and they had a large loan balance, so it wasn't they're like, I'm on year 20 and I've been paying and all this and I don't qualify. And it was like, we just have to switch you to the IDR plan and let them give you your credit, right, for your 20 years. So it's just making sure you're in the right plan that qualifies for forgiveness. The other thing is common, student loans don't go away, unfortunately, unless they're forgiven. So if you ignore them, just know it's going to impact your credit. So late payments hit your credit. Missing payments early can drop your credit score, cause more fees. If you ignore it, I have a lot of people that are like, especially after COVID, right? A lot of people haven't had to pay since COVID. So July 1st is when everybody has to start paying again. And they're like, I haven't looked at it. Well, they go in their account and they look and they're in default because the servicer put everybody back in repayment in October. And they had already missed payments early already before COVID. Now, when it came out, they were 6 months of no payment. You have to have 270 days of no payment at all. They can put you in default. And that's a process to get out. So you have to go through 9 months of rehab. You may consolidate your loans, but it stays on your credit if you consolidate. Default is a one-time option. You get one chance to rehabilitate defaulted loans. And then your only option is either to consolidate if you default again or to pay your loan and balance in full. So even if it's calling that, like a lot of times, and this is where I don't know if you guys have heard Navient got in trouble, some of the old servicers got in trouble. Um, People were missing payments early, and they could have been an income driven repayment plan with a $0 payment. Number one, that would count towards your IDR forgiveness or any forgiveness months. And two, it wouldn't have impacted your credit. So it's always good to look and see. And then not understanding PSLF. There was a rumor a long time ago that you had to work for a Title I school. That's not true. So a lot of parents, teachers I know, like my friend who is about to be forgiven in that 90 days, she's like, I didn't work for Title I. And I said, that doesn't mean anything. Just give me the EIN number. We'll check to see if it's PSLF eligible. And she found out that she was PSLF eligible this whole time. So it's just making sure that you're enrolling right when you start so that all you have to do is recertify every year. And so before you graduate, it's about knowing your balance, looking at what your total balance is, looking at who your servicer is, knowing who you have to pay. And if your account, you can't find your account, you can always go in and do the forget my password account on studentaid.gov. And then it's just the grace period, selecting your plan if you want to auto pay, and then making sure you're submitting your applications. Do know that the IDR plans, you have to verify your income every year. So if you get in the plan, don't ignore it the next year because they could put you in a standard plan. So you're going to have to send them either your tax return or your W-2s every year, and you need to do that with PSLF as well. And like I said, you have the student aid as your hub. The loan simulator helps you estimate. And then the PSLF tool helps you figure out if your employer is forgiven. I can run something. This is if you want a free 15-minute call just to talk about your discovery or your concerns. If you want to scan that QR code, you can get on my calendar. I am in Pacific Standard Time. Before I'll let you guys do this, I wanted to show somebody had asked about this loan simulator. So if you go to studentaid.gov, you would go to menu and you would go under loan repayment and you would select loan simulator. This is where you can fill in the information. So it'll ask your family size, your income, what your student loan balance is. You probably have to, if you log into student aid, it'll automatically transfer your loan amounts there. But if you don't, you could just put in like an estimate and it'll give you an estimated payment. But now I'm opening up for questions. I don't know if I can see hands or not, so I don't know if you want to call on people. Julio, if anybody has questions,
Yeah, thank you,
I
Erica.
can
This
look
has
in the chat as well.
been very informative, right? So myself too, I resonate with paying the minimum. I'm banking on that public forgiveness loan, right? So I'm already on that track. But we do see that there are questions. So if you want to come off mute, please do so because I know there was some on the chat, but I think it would be more
Mhm.
productive if you come off mute. So Frankie, I see your hands up. If you can ask your question, go ahead.
If I've been working at a nonprofit for the last 3 years, does it count towards the 10 years or does that start after I graduate?
It would start after you graduate. The only way to get credit while you're in school is if you contact financial aid and tell them that you do not want the in-school deferment. So you would have to pay while you're in school. But if you opt out of the in-school deferment and you're working at a nonprofit, you can accrue months while you're still in school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because the only times that don't count towards forgiveness are in-school deferment and default and any forbearance time. So they subtract that.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question. I'm gonna ask you a question from my friend Erica. I hope
Okay.
I'm not, hogging the time from anybody else. But again, anybody come off mute, I feel like it's a little bit more productive. So I'm putting my question. This is my friend. This is what he texted me. So I've been working for public service in the county of Ventura for 15 years. My question, would I be able to buy down years from the loan for public loan forgiveness once I finish my master's degree, since I have over 15 years of service in public service, or do I have to start fresh for another 10 years? So it's a little bit technical, so I don't know if you have insight into that.
No, so there's no way to buy months back. It doesn't matter. It just counts as a qualifying month. And it starts from the time your loan is dispersed.
Mm,
So if he's getting his master's, then the 10 years for the master's degree will be after he gets his after he's done out of school.
okay. So he would then, once, like you said, once the money hits your account, that's when then you start work. So basically, he would have to have 25 years, right, in the industry.
Correct. For
Uh,
part of it. So he may have, so say if he submitted, let's say he took a break, right, between graduate school and undergraduate school, and he had loans from undergrad. He could apply for those undergrad as long as he wasn't in school during that time.
mm,
And
okay.
so he could get the undergraduates forgiven if he worked 10 years after undergrad and then went back to his master's. And then
Mm,
his master's portion would be forgiven once he starts into repayment after he graduates the master's.
awesome. Okay, that works. So that
Mhm.
was that was my question. He couldn't make it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
Uh,
he has credit for the time before he started his master's if he was still working there. So he could apply for that public service for at least that amount of time for those other loans.
awesome. Sounds good. All right. Students, come off mute, raise your hand. Feel free to ask any questions. This is a good time to kind of just get some clarity in terms of how can you navigate this aspect. So feel free to come off mute if you want to ask a question.
Hello, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I've been looking at the loan simulator and it asks like your dependents and stuff. Um, how would once I sign up for the loan, do I have to like keep submitting, and for the PSFL too, do I have to keep submitting like my tax information? And the reason I ask is because um um my son, like me and his mother move him back and forth on our taxes every year. So I'm just wondering if that's going to affect anything.
So he can classify, it counts as, it's a weird caveat, but the 1 year he's with you, he would count as a child dependent. The year he's not with you, you still support him half time. So it
Mhm.
accounts for children, even your parents who are paying your college costs, you count as an other dependent
Okay, so it
because
shouldn't
they're
be
giving you half support, but
okay.
not on the taxes.
Okay, so if I essentially I wouldn't see a fluctuation every year. Like the year I don't have them, it's like it went up or something.
'Cause, yeah, it wouldn't go up because you're still supporting him half time, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So
Okay,
he's just classified not as a on taxes dependent and is classified as the other dependent.
okay. So it probably behooves me to do all this stuff now because this was my year to have them, so it might make sense. Thank you.
Yes, but you do have to do it every year. So you can submit for your income certification, can submit your taxes for the last 2 years. So we're in
Mhm.
2026, you can submit up until 2024. So if your income was 2024 was a little bit lower, you can submit that one. And then next year you submit 2025, right?
Hmm.
Or if you've decreased. So if you're not working or the job you took pays less than what is on your taxes from 2024 or 2025, you can submit your W-2 or your pay stub.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna just take my little tripod and just record myself just a little bit, but influencer life. But while we're taking questions, but does anybody, I guess, Stephanie, I saw in the chat that you said after completing graduate school, you have to wait 25 years of repayment for PSLF. No, you would only have to wait 10. It's 10 years for PSLF. once you get out of school.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Angel.
Hello,
Um,
Angel.
I'm finishing my master's in education. I'll be graduating in May, but I decided to pursue my PPS credential postgraduate. Would I still be eligible for the Graduate Plus loans as I'm pursuing this at USC, or would the new guidelines apply to me starting July 1st?
No, you would still be eligible because you're in that 3-year grace period. So as long as you've taken out a loan before July 1st, you would have access to the Graduate Plus.
Got it. So let's say I decide to defer this credential another year or two. I will still be eligible as long as I come back before the third year?
Yes. Just know if credentialing, I don't know if it's a year or two. If you do the 2 years, the first year maybe if you wait 2 years, the first year would be the third year of the grace period.
So the
So
credential I'm doing
then the
it's
second
one
year.
year. It'll be a 1 year credential. So
Okay,
just
you
to
should be
run the
fine.
math, I have up until let's say
2029.
2029 to enroll or start that year, right?
Start that year,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
And then I think Jose has a question. His hand is raised.
Yeah, me again. Sorry.
Okay, okay.
So you mentioned that you had been working already in public service without knowing that process of like getting those credits. Like, did you have to? Because I worked like part-time jobs, and I'm like, it's gonna be hard for me to like get my hours and all that stuff. So, what was that process like of like submitting for years of work you had already done?
It can be tedious. The one thing I do encourage people, and that's the hardest part of the application. The application itself is pretty simple and straightforward. But it's just getting access to the EIN number and then an email of somebody in HR. So I know for one of my clients, they're working right now, their nonprofit closed.
Mhm.
So they're going through LinkedIn to find an old manager. So some
Mm,
people do it that way. There is a caveat where you can submit your W-2s or your tax transcripts for that time, but you have to submit for like every month. So it's a little bit more tedious, but but you can still get credit for the past as long as it adds up to the 30 hours.
okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think Lydia has a question. Is her hand raised?
Yes. Hi, Erica. I also have a
Hello.
question similar to other people in the chat is with the current administration, other than the changes to PSLF in terms of like the different payment plans, will there be any limitations on kind of the amount of people they'll be forgiving the loans for? Any other kind of caveats we should be mindful of?
No, because what you'll learn is the public service loan forgiveness and the IDR are already in number one. The IDR is in your master promissory note, so you can't change a contract. Public service was approved by Congress, so it would have to go through Congress to make any changes. So even when they're talking about potentially certain nonprofits not qualifying, that has to go through a congressional vote. It can't just happen overnight.
Mhm. Okay.
Those are the main things. The forgiveness, they haven't mentioned anything about who they're forgiving. The only program that possibly will go away is called borrower defense. You guys you don't really have to worry about that unless you know somebody who went to like a for-profit school like University of Phoenix, Everest, Rye. There's about 150 of them they submitted for like misinformation and defrauding the students and not giving them the right information. So that group is likely going to go away. I know it's on probably if not by July, it'll probably go away by the end of December.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
So there was a question in the chat from Zaira Gomez. Is there someone we could sit with and talk to? So we see that you have your free 15-minute discovery call. You would be somebody that she could sit down with, right? Or somebody in financial aid. But what would they get out of meeting with you to talk about this?
So yeah, the 15-minute is just for me, one, to get a feel if you like me, or two, right? Two, to fill out if there's anything we can, if you're a good candidate for us to work with. And we can talk through quick questions, right? If there's something you're trying to make a decision on that day, I can give you some guidance on that. I do offer one-on-one or group workshops. The group workshops for 10 people or more are free. And then if you want me to specifically look at your loans, so you log into student aid, I go in there and analyze it for you and give you a concrete plan, like a custom plan. I do charge a special $97 for USC.
Okay, awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. $97 to save about $50,000. Am I right?
Right. And
A
I
small
offer
investment
Klarna and
for a bigger
Afterpay too. So
Afterpay, you got Klarna, all that stuff. That's funny.
um,
Awesome. Yeah.
JD's our
Anybody else wants
professional.
to come off mute and ask a question before we let Erica go and respect her time?
I just want to say thank you to Erica. This has been wonderful. I look forward to working with you and having a 15-minute call with you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. I'm glad this was beneficial. I look forward to speaking to you as well.
Awesome. Zaira, I see that you're raising your hand. Last minute question or comment.
Yes, I want to say thank you for answering that. For my situation, I had a question. Like, I still haven't taken out any loans, so if I do the 15-minute talk, would it be beneficial just to like go over my options or like help me out? What's the next step?
Yes, we could do that. And that's a service I've started to work with, especially with the parents. I've talked to a lot of high school students they're worried about. So we kind of come up and look at if you were going to take out a loan, what does it look like? What is the loan type you're getting? And kind of see what your goals are.
Awesome.
I had
Awesome.
a quick
Oh, go ahead.
question. Is this presentation gonna be available to us so we can like watch it again?
Yes, the presentation is recorded, so I'll upload this on YouTube by next week. I have to send it to our marketing person. They'll edit it and everything. So this will be available, and I'll send out the link to everybody that attended today. So yeah, so you'll have access to this, and as well, make sure that you screenshot Erica's QR code, or, set up a call with her. So yeah, so thank you for everybody that showed up. I know we had about 60, 70 people, but thank you everybody for being here and asking questions. I hope this was instrumental because I know navigating, financial stuff in terms of your education can be scary in terms of changes. Erica has made it clear, but again, a lot of questions can still arise. So feel free to reach out to her for any questions as well. Erica, any last comments that you would want to give to the students?
I just dropped my IG in the chat and then my website. I'm also on LinkedIn under Erica R. Anderson. But thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. You guys had great questions. I was so excited to speak because I just love educating people just so that they can be informed. It's all about being informed. Student loans can be scary, but once you have a plan, it's not as scary and it can just relieve some of that stress knowing that you don't have to like, what am I doing next month? What am I doing this month? So getting a clear and having access to someone who can break that down for you. I just love doing it because you guys are what it's about, right? It's about making sure that like we have access to the return on an investment and see that and don't get bogged down and can still live out our dreams and pursue what we want to pursue and not have this weight of student loans on our shoulders.
Quick, Erica, the URL for your website is not working apparently right now. I looked it up as well.
Is it not? Did I not publish it? I made change it. I literally made changes to it today. So it may, no, if you go on the search bar, yeah, that's it. But are you looking for the book a free call?
Oh, it's
Is that
because
not working?
is the student loan pal. So I think you put the student pal. So the student loan pal is
Oh,
missing.
okay. Yes, the student loan pal. Sorry, I put it in there wrong. I'm sorry.
Awesome. Yeah, so those that were trying to log in, the studentloanpal.com is the actual website. So I'm glad we clarified that right on the moment.
Yeah.
But again, you can send.
Thank you for having me, Julio. This was so much
Yeah.
fun. Let me know if
And
you
I'll
need
send the
another one.
information. Yeah, no, I will definitely maybe reach out to you in the fall. So once these things take off in July, we can catch up with people who maybe didn't catch this information. But thank you again. I hope you have a good rest of your day and everybody else as well. So thank you.
All right, and congratulations to those who are graduating. All right, have a great day, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.